Can you hear me? Thank you. Good afternoon, dear ladies, gentlemen. I am Jamila Asanova. I am Chair of Asia Development Alliance, and I am so proud to first participate in such kind of high forum. And also, we are very glad to here for organize this side event together with the partners. Welcome to side event on voluntary national reviews and gender equality. So, and as co-organizers, here we are Action for Sustainable Development Organization, Asia Civil Society Partnership for Sustainable Development, the SDGs, and the Center for Human Rights and Development in Mongolia, also National Committee on Gender Equality, Secretariat of the Government of Mongolia. So, regional partner, we have regional partners, Asia Development Alliance, Global Call for Action Against Poverty, GCAP, South Asia Alliance for Poverty Eradication, the next one, Migrant Forum in Asia, MFA, and the International Youth Training Center in Chiang Mai. Also, we have national partners, CSO Network in SDG, Japan, INFIT, Indonesia, APPMG, SDG, Malaysia, and the PRRM. Dear colleagues, welcome to the session. So we have, could we introduce next slide? So we have the following program agenda. The session will take 75 minutes. First will be introduction, and then will be keynote presenters with the key panelists. It will be the key session today. Then we have keynote speakers will be National Committee on Gender Equality and the coordinator of Asia Civil Society Partnership for Sustainable Development. I think 2 persons are more than welcome to provide introduction. Then we have 4 presentations of 4 panelists with CSOs from VNR countries. It's Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia, and Japan. Those 4 countries are representing VNR this year on a high-level political forum. So then we have a question and answers open discussion, and then we'll have some closing remarks. And here we will have the MP and the chair of SDG subcommittee of Mongolian Parliament, and also we'll have guests from Mongolia and Anselma from APSD. First, thanks to Anselma, who prepared all this side event actually, and we are very proud that the contently and had a chance to invite all of our colleagues from our Asia countries. So first, I would like to say to invite keynote presenter here to the podium, and please Inha Bayar, Secretary of the National Committee on Gender Equality and the Chief of the National Committee of Gender Equality Secretariat, Government of Mongolia. Yeah, thank you. Please welcome.
Distinguished guests, representatives, members of civil society organizations and public institutions, I am happy to extend warm greetings to all and every of you. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Mrs. Oren Sach, Chief of the Center for Human Rights and Development, NGO of Mongolia, and the organizing team for this initiative and for inviting us here today. Since the Beijing Declaration was adopted in 1995, Mongolia has placed a special emphasis on strengthening the government leadership and accountability system for ensuring gender equality of its citizens, with the law on promotion of gender equality enacted by Parliament in 2011. The National Committee on Gender Equality, chaired by the Prime Minister of Mongolia, and its secretariat take the lead in strengthening the system at the institutional level. The committee has 41 members, ensuring equal participation from both governmental and non-governmental sectors. Additionally, the committee presents the results of gender policy and program work at cabinet meetings and subsequently to the parliament, maintain a feedback loop. To promote the multi-stakeholder participation and technical collaboration, there are working groups such as the groups of national gender experts and gender researchers, female parliament members, and the policy council consists of 20 members of the parliament. The recognition of the SDG 5 is a key accelerator of the overall SDG implementation, and a driver of cross-sectoral coordination by the government of Mongolia, is entailing a rapid strengthening of both the national gender machinery and the capacity of stakeholders. Since 2021, the concept of gender equality has been finding its substantive integration into legislation across various sectors, including labor, education, health, agriculture, politics, and public service. Key laws enacted or amended to support these efforts include the labor law, the general law on education, the law on public health care and services, the law on herders, the law on political parties, and the law on parliamentary elections. In 2023, the member organization of the Women's Network Momfemnet NGO, along with other civil movements, women members of parliament, and the women from various political parties united and actively collaborated. As a result of the 2024 parliamentary election, the representation of female members in parliament increased from 17.1% to 25.4%, bringing us closer to the global average. At the systemic level, making progress depends heavily on the national capacity to ensure the gender equality. We were training trainers in a three-phase training program to prepare researchers, expert professionals, and media journalists specializing in gender issues to work in central, regional, and sectoral contexts. In 2024, we developed and advanced a training model based on gender transformative approach, and used it for training of trainers by choosing 30 specialists from government and non-governmental organizations through an open selection process. This initiative was implemented in collaboration with the UNDP, funded by the European Union. Before coming to this forum, two successful discussions were organized, and 60 participants took part in this discussion, including a member organization of the network, SDGs subcommittee of the parliament, the relevant ministries, international organizations, and professional associations, and the private sector. As a result of the discussion, it was noted that there are specific experiences of effective multi-stakeholder partnerships. The critical issues were identified and prioritized, and measures to strengthen collaboration were outlined for future action. In conclusion, to ensure the implementation of the SDG, we urge to further increase efforts for achieving gender equality, to consistently implement and expand our experiences, and to disseminate them widely. Let us work together more closely and more efficiently for justice through gender equality in the name of our children and future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to say that the Ms. In Javier serves as the Secretary of National Committee on Gender Equality, and she is the Chief of Secretariat within the Government of Mongolia. In this capacity, she plays a pivotal role in shaping national policies aiming and enhancing gender equality. Thanks a lot. Her efforts include collaborating with different government agencies and the development partners to implement initiatives that address gender dispatches across the country. Thank you so much. Thank you. Our keynote presenter, Dr. Anselm Lee, Professor, Coordinator of Asia Civil Society Partnership for SDGs, APSD, Anselm from Korea. He is coordinator of Asia Civil Society Partnership for SDGs. He's an academic, practitioner, civil society advocate, and a trainer with over 30 years of experience in the field of human rights and development, both nationally in Korea and internationally globally. He currently serves as a coordinator for two international CSO networks, the Asia Civil Society Partnership for Sustainable Development since 2021 and the Global Summit Watch G20, C7 and the BRICS Summit since 2023. Anselm is currently an adjunct professor of three universities, at Joy, Kyonji, and Songho Ho. He teaches courses on international relations, NGOs, SDGs, and international development cooperation. His extensive background in the field has made him significant contributor to various aspects of sustainable development and the global cooperation. Thank you. Anselm, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for kind introduction. Since time is very short, let's get into the main point. I have about more than 10 PowerPoint slides. I'm not going to get all the details, but I put a lot of explanation so they can read later on, for you. Okay, so title is, next slide, overview of VNR in Asian countries. So, but when you say this map Asia, next slide. Okay, these are UN ESCAP members. As you know, United States, UK, France, they are members of ESCAP. But when you said Asia here in this room, basically Northeast Asia, and then Central Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia. So not Southwest Asia. So we have about 29 members. So we are working with our partners in those 29 countries. Okay. So we used to organize this side event almost every year since 2016, but this year is very special. That's why I want to put ourselves in the context of 2025. The first one is, this is a 10th anniversary of VNR. The SDG, adoption SDG. At the same time, the Addis Ababa Action Agenda. That's why we have a fourth, the Conference on Financing for Development, and also 10th anniversary of Paris Climate Agreement. So that's important to remember, plus 10. At the same time, this is the second year of the third cycle of SDG. As you know, every 4 years we have a summit. So we are the third cycle up to 2027. At the same time, this is the first year of Summit of the Future. Last year, we organized here the CSO event about Summit of the Future. So this is the first year of implementation. At the same time, as I said, we have two major conferences, the Financial for Development and Social Summit, and also another one, 80th anniversary of UN, and also 30th anniversary of Copenhagen, and Beijing Plus 30. So I think it's very timely. We have a gender equality, the 30th anniversary of Beijing, at the same time, the SDG plus 10. Next. But this is about UN. But outside the UN, we are more talking about impact of Trump too. Everywhere, the security, development, especially development, many are affected by the US aid, cut, or crossing down, and WHO, UN Human Rights Council, and more to come, So this is the major concern among those who are inside the UN and also outside the UN. And also G20 summit, several countries are members of G20. It's the first time in Africa, for the first time Africa. This was the last summit of the first cycle of the G20. So next one will go to the United States. It's the beginning of second cycle, but we are not sure whether there will be a second cycle or not, Many things are uncertain. And also when it comes to BRICS, traditionally we have two founding members, China, India, but now many countries in Asia, they want to join BRICS. Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, I don't know, Mongolia wants to join BRICS. So this is another interesting challenges and also opportunities for some regions. And also ASEAN, Malaysia is a chair of ASEAN. That means they are going to host ASEAN Summit, ASEAN Plus 3, Korea, Japan, China, and also East Asia Summit, and also East Asia Summit. And next year we go to Philippines. And then South Korea will host the APEC, Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. So there are many things happening around, but all are related to SDG. If you look at all the outcome document, at least one paragraph they mention about SDG. So it's not only UN, but also outside all the political meeting, they are addressing SDG. Next. So now, as I said, this is the third cycle of VNR. So we're starting 2023 and then 2027. So each year we have a theme and a priority goal for global review, and those are the VNR countries. I don't know why, but odd number year, there are many, 9, 2023, 2025, 10. But last year only 2, So we are very busy, Many NGOs are busy, So we have invited only 4 out of 10 countries to share the CSO engagement. Almost without exception, all the countries CSO are engaged with the VNR, Okay, so this is and next year will be 35, this year 3, 5, 8, 14, as we all discussed the last few days. And next year will be 6, 7, 9, 11, and 17. Next slide. So this is the 10 countries this year VNR. The next. And then short data and the statistics, because it's an overview of VNR. We have 193 UN members, but 4 countries have not participated at all, Those countries, Haiti, Myanmar, South Sudan, and United States of America, Even Biden administration, they have not participated. So first 3 are so-called failed state. But the last one is a superpower, So that shows, the reality of geopolitical reality of VNR, And also average 40 countries every year, And then majority countries, 2 or 3 times. But in Asia, only 2 countries, only once. I don't know why. They are not competing, North and South Korea, only once. And then internationally, 4 countries, Azerbaijan, Colombia, Mexico, Sierra Leone, they participated 4 times, 2024. But in Asia, if Indonesia, Philippines submitted a VNR report in July, it will be the only Asian country 4 times. Okay, these are the short statistics. So mainstream, but still few countries, not yet, The next. Then this is another data. This shows from 2016, which country participated in the VNR. So 2025, we have 10, according to 4 sub-regions, Central Asia, Southeast Asia, and Northeast Asia. The next one. Next one shows, 4 times Indonesia, Philippines, so gold medal, gold medal. And 3 times Kazakhstan, Bhutan, India, Nepal, Laos, Malaysia, Thailand, Japan, silver medal. And the 2 times many, and then only 1 time, South and North Korea, yellow card. And then the Myanmar, red card. So this is a record of VNR in terms of quantity. I'm not talking about quality, only quantity. So now a little bit about significance of why VNR important. Next, there are several regions that many CSO governments are engaging VNR for those regions. Strengthening national ownership of SDG, enhancing multi-stakeholder engagement, improving data monitoring mechanism, encouraging peer learning and best practice sharing, and enhancing policy coherence, institutional coherence. So many are saying, we benefit from VNR process on those areas. The detail you can read. The next one is, achievement. So there are some achievements. So first, increased participation in VNR, except for countries, almost all, 99% of the country participate. And data availability. To produce VNR report, you have to really dig into all the data, This is a good opportunity. And also great civil society and private sector engagement. Almost all the countries, there's a CSO report, different names, spotlight report, shadow report, counter report, whatever name. And the identification of challenges, acceleration area. It's a very good opportunity to compare with the other countries about SDG implementation. And lastly, regional and thematic report complementing VNR. VNR is basically national, but we have a thematic report and also regional report. For instance, ASEAN, ASEAN and also European Union although it's a VNR, European Union last year presented the VNR report representing 27 countries, but not yet ASEAN. ASEAN produced data, but not really form of the presenting reports, So this can be very interesting area for benchmarking. So these are some of the achievements. The next one. But nevertheless, there is a room for improvement. So these are how to improve VNR, both outcome, impact, and process. In terms of outcome, so reporting to action-oriented recommendation. So you get a lot of recommendation, but very difficult to know how much those recommendations are implemented after VNR. And also policy coherence integration, and now the local sub-national integration. Many municipalities, local private, they want to join VNR in the name of VLR, Voluntary National Review, but very selective, not like a VNR, So this is the request to strengthen participation of local governments. This one. And then lastly, accountability and follow mechanism and gender equality and SDG 16 plus in VNR. As you know, SDG 17 is only annual permanent goal every year, but there also a campaign to put SDG 16 as well. SDG 16 is very important in terms of governance, peace, human rights, and democracy, and also mainstreaming human rights approach to VNR process. So these are some of the areas for improvement, to enhance the quality of outcome. The next one. How to enhance impact, it's a more longer term. The first linkage between VNR and SDG financing. At the end of the day, government should invest more in SDG, so it has to be linked to finance, and also strengthen multi-stakeholder engagement and role of private sectors. Many private sectors, they are now engaging SDG, and some countries, they use so-called CSR, corporate social responsibility, or ESG, or now business and human rights becoming more and more important. For all the private sector engaged in SDG, they have to follow this guiding principle of business and human rights, and also regional peer learning mechanism, as I mentioned, SDG, African Union, European Union, and also digital and technological integration. So these are some of the areas for improvement. And lastly, process. Process also important. So process means data collection, writing report, and monitoring, and so on and so on. The first one is standardized VNR methodologies. Although this is a guideline by UN, each country has their own way, So sometimes very difficult to compare, among countries. So we need to standardize and strengthening national SDG data system. The data is very key, but many countries facing a lot of challenges. Data, digital data and the raw data. So that is the second one. And frequency of VNR reporting. So usually 4 or 5 years. Indonesia was a very good example. In the beginning, every 2 years, very regular, but now 3 years, right? So very irregular, So we have to find a way so that national government can find a way to align national reporting system and the global system. Or be like a UPR, Universal Periodic Review. If you are familiar with the human rights, everything is fixed, Every 4 and 5 years, all the countries, including the United States, submit a UPR report in Geneva, but not VNR, So we have to learn from the UN human rights mechanism. Lastly, promoting the digital multimedia VNR. So without going to New York, without coming to Bangkok, people should be able to participate, So these are some of the suggestions on how to improve the VNR process. I hope some of the panelists can give us your experience, how you implement, or whether you agree or you want to add more suggestions to improve VNR process. Lastly, I have 2 more. So now, that's why we need, as a civil society, independent monitoring mechanisms of SDG by CSO, So some of the CSO, last several years, together with the Action for Sustainable Development, APSD, with the ADA, Asia Development Alliance, we have been facilitating the independent CSO monitoring in the name of People's Scorecard, So that So we can know clearly whether we are making progress or stagnant or regress, But this is a perception based because as a CSO, we cannot collect all the official data. And also there's a lot of limit to assess official data. That's why we introduce perception based the monitoring mechanism. So for purposes, first, accountability gap. Very difficult to know whether governments are accountable enough from the official report. That's why we want to bring this one. And data transparency and inclusivity, and also empowering community and stakeholder. So community, people on the ground, they should not be target of simply collecting data. They should be the part, this agent in the process, data collection and processing, and also monitoring. And lastly, improving policy program effectiveness. For this region, we are trying to promote the more independent civil society monitoring mechanism. The next. So this is a sample. So several years ago, if you go to this website, Action for Sustainable Development, there's a scorecard. And every year we produce summary reports. Because of funding shortage, we support financially only those who are VNR countries and also developing countries. So not yet we have a report about Japan, not South Korea and Singapore. So we are hoping to get more reports, and we have one in Mongolia a few years ago. So we want to collect all these people's scorecard report and compare, and then there we can learn more. How the SDGs are implemented on the ground. The last one slide. Okay, so how to strengthen independent monitoring mechanisms. So People's Scorecard is one of many. There are many initiatives here, but scorecard is more global, which means you can compare internationally among different countries. So institutionalized role of CSO in SDG monitoring and community-led data initiative, the multi-stakeholder collaboration, and advocate for open SDG data system. And lastly, include regional and global networking of CSO SDG review. Already we have ASEAN, Africa, but we don't have really globally among CSO and stakeholders. So we can bring all this, official government one, UN one, stakeholder and civil society, we can understand much better where we are, and also we can improve our ways of implementing SDG. So thank you for your listening. I look forward to the comment from the national CSO and others. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Anselma. So maybe some questions or clarifications would be better on the next, after we will have four key panelists. So, and the more than welcome here to the podium, I think all four, please. So we have key panelists in our side event. First, let me introduce all four of them. Just from Malaysia, Dr. Teo Su An from APGM, SDG from Malaysia. The next panelist is Becky Malay from Philippines. Intan Kusuma from Indonesia, INVIT. And from Japan, Dr. Takafumi Miyake, CSO Network of SDGs. So our panel will be focusing more on opportunities, challenges, strategies, and the lessons. So each panelist will have over 5 minutes. So, and our first speaker, Sue, please, Dr. Teo Su An. She's from Malaysia, human rights practitioner and academic with extensive experience in law, human rights, and artificial intelligence, AI. She currently serves as the Director of Parliamentary Policy Advocacy Department for the All-Party Parliamentary Group Malaysia on Sustainable Development Goals. So, Sue holds a PhD in law from the University of Copenhagen. She academic journey also includes a Master of Law from the University of Cambridge and the Master of Science in the Human Rights from the London School of Economics and the Political Science. So, floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Jamila. Maybe some clarifications. I never really go to law, but then I did my PhD in the Victoria University of Wellington. I'm more specialized in social anthropology, actually. So, but then let me just go into my slides. Today we are going to talk about the review. We are going to review the SDG 5 and also the gender mainstreaming in Malaysia, just to go align with the SDG 5. So, so my presentation next, if you have the slides, are we going to? Okay. So maybe I'll just go ahead then. So currently, as we have known that Malaysia is going to submit the VNR report in this coming July in New York, and I am also involved in writing the VNR reports, but specifically focusing on the people's theme, which is to focus on SDG 1 to 5. But in line with the effort to writing the VNR reports, Malaysia government is currently also tracking the achievement of all the indicators of the SDG across the 17 SDGs. So in these 17 SDG, the latest data that we have 5 SDGs that is still off track, or rather we are still trying to achieve them, and SDG 5 is one of them. So in this presentation, I will go deeper into understanding, or rather to discuss with all of you why is it that SDG 5 is still underachieved in Malaysia context. Saying that in Malaysia the SDG 5 is underachieved is it's also important to have a disclaimer to say that Malaysia do have data for SDG 5. But I think that the official data, as we all know, I think it's also cut across a lot of countries having the similar situation, is that our data may not be able to reflect the gender dimension of the SDGs. So what we often have will be the numbers of women in the leadership and also managerial position. So this is also the same in Malaysia context. So we do have a number, or rather the seats of women in the national parliament, and like in senator and also the House of Representative, and also we do have numbers of women in the managerial position. In terms of the latest statistical data, the number of women in the managerial position has been the same since 2022 until 2023. But what has been changed is the number of women in the Senator House, which has decreased by around 2%. And in the House of Representatives, where all the members of Parliament would be, it is still the same for 2022 to 2023. So the argument is that we still haven't really reached the critical mass of 30%. But having said that, the performance of the gender in terms of education is quite similar in terms of men and also women. So we do have data for the children who has reached the primary educations, the lower secondary educations, and also secondary education by states and also by sex, segregated data. So participation of the rate in preschool, we also have the data to show that men and women have the similar or the almost the same proportion in terms of the educational attainment. Slide 4, please. So as you can see from here, this will be the data for 2023, which is the latest data that we have from the official data of Malaysia. So the number of achievement is almost the same for men and also for women. What would be quite if you can see, quite interesting to show is that even the female achievement, educational achievement in the in the primary, lower secondary, and also the upper secondary, the education is slightly higher than the men. I think also a lot of countries are sharing the similar kind of a trend. Next slide, please. So having said that, as we can say, as I said it earlier, gender SDG 5 is still underperformed in Malaysia, but as I also said, a lot of the data that we have, I would argue that we still cannot, it cannot be captured by the indicators or maybe the targets of the current SDG. So in terms of gender mainstreaming in Malaysia, Malaysia has been mainstreaming gender in our policy, national policy of women in 1989. So during then, it is to tackle the issue of disproportionate of men and also women. So we have the national policy to increase the women participation in labor force, in education, and also in the managerial or leadership position. And then in our 6 Malaysia plan, we also have a specific chapter on women. And Malaysia is also one of the countries that ratify CEDAW, CRC, and also some of the international treaties. So in terms of legislation reform, some of the latest reform that we have are the anti-stalking law, where we actually introduce a new penal code under the section of 507A, which criminalize stalking. So the law aims to protect individuals, which I need to also like to highlight here. The individuals here were also not only women, but also including the men. Although we put a special or particular emphasis on women from being followed, tracked, or harassed, both physically and online. So we do amend the penal code as well to expand the definition of sexual harassment and introduce a stricter penalty for offenders. And then we also have Domestic Violence Act, which has been strengthened to provide better protection and support. And we have the gender quota for laws, which introduced to increase women representation in political decision-making bodies. As I mentioned earlier, we still haven't really reached the 30% of critical mass. Next slide, please. Yes. So one of the, before I close, maybe I can just say that we have the gender responsive budgeting. Maybe a lot of you may know this from about this GRB, which is one of the really important, or rather one of the highlights in the CEDAW convention. So we actually implemented since 2003 with 4 ministries, and we have it in Penang, GRBP programs, government commitment. I'm trying to go very fast here. Maybe you can have a read. And we do have capacity building on what we mean by GRB and also monitoring and evaluations. But of course, with me coming from the next slide is I'm coming from the APPGM for Sustainable Development Goal, which stands for All Party Parliamentary Groups for Sustainable Development Goals. We do localization of SDG in the parliament session, parliament level, constituency level by engaging with all these 6 stakeholders. Next slide, please. And we have gone to 143 parliamentary constituency. For your information, Malaysia have 222 parliamentary constituency. We cover more than half of the place. Just to highlight maybe the next slide and the next slide. So in our effort in doing the localization of SDG, gender is also one of the key elements. So as you can see from here, for all of the places that we have gone to do the localization of SDG, we do have community projects. And here are the breakdown of the community projects that include women, youth, and the indigenous communities. So yeah, I'm sorry to take up too much of your time, but thank you so much.
Thank you for very interesting information and from the country which is happening and just due to VNR implementation and not only but also with SDG. So our next speaker, Rebecca, we are saying Becky Malay. She's from Treasurer of Board of Trustees of the Philippines Rural Reconstruction Movement, and serves as its director and advocacy and development cooperation, convener of global call for action against poverty Philippines, and sits as a regional council member of GCAP Asia. Together with the National Economic Development Authority, she is a co-chair of SDG Chamber of National Body and monitors of government implementation of the SDGs. Currently, Becky is a member of Global Steering Committee of a coalition of UN, We Want, a coalition of international civil society organizations seeking to promote multilateralism and strengthen the UN system. Becky, floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Jamila. Good afternoon to everyone. I am going to focus on the processes of the VNR in the Philippines. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. I cannot sing for you tonight. Previous engagements of civil society organizations with the National Economic and Development Authority. The National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA, is the one that actually does the national planning and monitoring of the implementation of the SDGs in the Philippines. It is a coordinative body that coordinates with the different agencies of the government, all the departments, what you call ministries in other countries, and it really looks at how the plan, the Philippine Development Plan, is being implemented and budgeted as well. So, when we try to engage the government in the past for the VNR, we could really say that there are very limited opportunities for engagement. You just have to be very aggressive because it wasn't really mainstream, no? So it was very opaque. The processes before was very opaque. It was coursed through the international commitments on Human Development Committee, where all concerns were taken up for review and policy discussions, and therefore limited CSO participation to those who are being called or are being more aggressive to engage the government, but it's not formal and regular. So new developments have happened in 2023. The NEDA SDG Stakeholders Chamber was formally established, but the membership is mostly corporate foundations, private sector representatives, and a few CSOs. They don't like us activists in the stakeholders chamber, but nevertheless, gradually spaces are being opened up and broadened, with the chamber electing co-chairs from the government and CSOs. The chamber is organized into the following technical working groups that mirror the government subcommittee on the SDGs. There are 4 committees, working groups, sorry, Peace and Security, Social Working Group, Economic Working Group, and Environment Working Group. So within the government, the DBCC, or the Department of Budget Coordinating Committee, and the NEDA convenes this unit and looks at how peace and security problems, peace and security programs, and social, economic, and environment programs are actually being implemented within the government PDP, the Philippine Development Plan. So the co-chairs, I am one of the co-chairs. I was elected as one of the co-chairs of the Stakeholders Chamber, and we sit in the committee. We are able to look at how the DBCC actually dispenses budgets and allots budgets for SDG activities of the government. So it's gradually opening up in that way. So on the VNR for 2025, as Anselmo said earlier, this is the 4th time that the Philippines is reporting to the HLPF, the High Level Political Forum. And interestingly, the Philippines reports every time there is elections. It's election years, all the years that we have been doing VNRs. A workshop consultation with CSOs was held in November 25, 2024, last year, to start the process of drafting the report. So the CSOs were formally invited, and there's a workshop that happened, and it was very forward and futures looking, and they gave out, the CSOs that participated were very critical of how the government actually is reporting on the pace of progress of the SDGs. We have a good statistical system, but it's very limited, and the reporting of the government is actually very much focused on the technical aspects. So it's not really very qualitative as expected, and therefore CSOs have already started doing spotlight reports since long ago. So we have already shadowing the reports of government, not even before, even much earlier, even before the what do you call this, the People's Scorecard actually happened. No, the timeline for the report is actually being adopted by the government. Zero draft is coming out at the end of the month, February, and then dissemination for comments is until March 7, and then the final draft will be submitted to the Department of Foreign Affairs on the third week of April, and then June 17 will be the submission of the VNR report to the United Nations, and reporting obviously is on the HLPF event in New York. I'm trying to link, because SDG 5 is going to be reviewed along with SDGs 3, 14, 17, and 8. But let me focus on what the issues are in terms of how CSOs are actually looking to write the spotlight report. As I said earlier, it's going to be an election year, but we all know that it's very important that the government actually puts money where its mouth is. If it says it's going to focus on all of these goals, therefore it should really fund those goals. So we're very critical in terms of engaging the government. We have a group called Alternative Budget Initiative. We actually work directly with the members of Congress. When the executive submits its budget, we work directly with the members of Congress to look at the budget allocations and really analyze where the money should be put and where it shouldn't be. And therefore, in our engagement last year, what we found out, because the government is the Congress or the Parliament is actually very much controlled by one party, there is a lot of patronage politics, and of course, because they're preparing for the elections, a lot of monies that have been used to be in the program funds, meaning they should be allocated to government programs, have been moved, in fact, to unprogrammed funds where there's a lot of discretion and sometimes not being audited properly. So these are the issues that we have found out. For example, the main issue that we have been criticizing is the defunding of the Philippine Health Insurance Scheme. So the government was supposed to be contributing from the budget, from the general allocation from the budget, but it said PhilHealth has a lot of funds, we don't need to fund it. So how do you in fact do universal health care? Because we have a very good law on universal health care, but we cannot now access for the poorest of the poor. So of course the contributors to the fund are able to access that, but out of pocket expenses have actually very much risen because of that, because there is preferential option or an affirmative action for poor communities and those that fall below the poverty line. It's the government that pays the Philippine health insurance, but now no more. So it's a deprivation. A lot of women are affected by that, obviously. So, but let me go to another part of focusing on the main issues, or the more controversial issues on women and gender. According to recent reports, the Philippines is actually considered to be stagnating in terms of its progress in achieving SDG 5. We used to be, up there in terms of being able to represent our gender in terms of parity, gender parity under the WEF. The Philippines is very high, but now it is stagnating. It's right there. It's not making significant strides in reaching the goal despite efforts of the government, and the moderate progress is considered if you look at the indicators, it's very moderate because there are less women now in leadership roles and economic opportunities. So in 2022, another big issue that concerns gender, in 2022, the teenage pregnancy rate in the Philippines was 5.4%, down from 8.6% in 2017. However, the number of pregnancies in girls aged 15 and under increased by 35% from 2021 to 2022. This is staggering, and this has led to calls for more sex education and health services. And why did this happen? There are some thoughts or initial assessments that teenage pregnancies in the Philippines is now a significant public health issue because it can lead to health risks for both the mother and the child, and then it can trap the girls in a cycle of poverty and lose a lot of opportunities in life. No? And so the proposed solutions, the Commission on Population and Development has called for a more age-sensitive sexuality education. There is, okay, I'll wrap it up. So this is one of the issues that's going to be reflected in the Spotlight report because there are actually a lot of measures that being proposed in Congress and in the Senate to specifically look at this problem, but it's being opposed because we are Catholics and comprehensive sexual education is not good. So it's strange, but we hope to overcome those barriers. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next our speaker from Indonesia, Intan Kusumanian from INFIT. She's a program officer for SDGs at INFIT. Intan previously worked as a paralegal of the Women's Crisis Center for 3 years. Her encounter with the victims and survivors of gender-based violence, which often resulted to significantly fueled her desire to delve into the policy advocacy and the development. Intan holds a master's degree in development studies from the International Institute for Social Studies, part of Erasmus University, Rotterdam in the Netherlands. Her studies specialized in women and gender studies. So, please.
Okay, thank you so much for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. So, as introduced by I am Intan from INFIT. INFIT is International NGO Forum on Indonesian Development. So we are an evidence-based policy advocacy organization. We have 78 members all across Indonesia. So I'm here today. I want to discuss the state of gender equality in Indonesia towards the VNR. This year is our 4th VNR and maybe the last. So next. It could be because of the budget. Next. Yeah, here you guys can see that we have several legal framework. So I believe to show strong commitment of women's rights, Indonesia has established here a legal framework to combat violence against women, promoting political participation, and also protecting reproductive health. However, we believe that implementing this law effectively and addressing discriminatory social norms remain crucial for achieving gender equality in Indonesia. Okay, next. Here I have several, actually a lot of data. I will not go through all of the data, but I will just run quickly to the side. Okay, here you guys can see that in 2024, there is 1 in 4 Indonesian women aged 15 until 64 years have experienced violence against women. And also during the 2024 election, there are 82% of female politicians reported an increase in the intensity of violence against women in the politics. It is very high compared to the previous election, and from 82%, only only 22% of these cases that were reported. Next. So here you guys also can see that the findings underscore the urgent need of intensified effort to, of course, enforce existing law, address the root causes of these harmful practices such as poverty, cultural norms, and lack of education amongst women in Indonesia. And also, we also urge and implement comprehensive programs that protect the rights and well-being of women and girls in Indonesia. Next. Okay, for target 5.4, we don't have the regulation yet. But then, yeah, this is the one that we're trying to urge to the government that we have to have the regulation in terms of unpaid care works and domestic works. Next. For the target 5.5, here are the participation of women in politics. You guys can see there is an increase participation of women in parliament, but we think that nevertheless it is crucial to critically examine whether these advancements represent genuine effort to empower women and ensure their meaningful participation and effective participation in the political realm, or rather they are merely tokenistic gestures. Okay, next. So for this target, Indonesia has significantly unmet needs for family planning with 18% for modern contraception. So it is also coupled with the spousal consent requirement for access, and it is mandated by the government regulation. So if we want to have a modern contraception, we have to have our spouse consent. Amazing, quote unquote. Yeah, it is also reveals a critical barrier to women's reproductive health and rights and highlight a clear gender bias in healthcare policy. Next. Here are, next, sorry. Yeah, so we go through the challenge in the VNR process related to gender inequality, equality in Indonesia. So the data collection and analysis, so in Indonesia, the availability of data and gender disaggregated data in VNR is not that much. So while effort have been made to collect such data, ensuring its accuracy and also consistency remain a challenge. This lack of data also affect the ability of to monitor and also evaluate gender equality program effectively indeed. And also we have deep-rooted patriarchy as a norm. I think most of our country have this patriarchy issue as a norm, and also rising conservatism in Indonesia that often discriminate against women and girls, limiting their opportunity for advancement in the VNR. And also we, as also Becky said, the institutional capacity in Indonesia also lacked. So to ensure gender responsive planning and budgeting, we have to advance our institutional capacity. And also the impact of external factors. So post-COVID, we have slowly recovery condition and also climate change will worsen our gender inequality. Okay, the last one. Here are INFIT's recommendation to enhance the SDGs implementation in Indonesia and also maybe globally because it's very broad. So the first one is enhancing funding commitment, particularly in ODA amidst declining international support. So in light of the diminishing international support, countries such as Japan, China, the UK, Europe, and Australia must reaffirm their commitment to achieving the official development assistance target of 0.7 of gross national income, as Scandinavian countries exemplify. The second recommendation is fostering an enabling environment in the Asia Pacific. So supposedly UN's ESCAP should advocate and establishing specific regulations supporting Asia Pacific's country sustainable development. These could involve legislative measures or presidential regulation, also facilitating a conducive SDGs implementation environment. So the last one, but not least, is transparency and accountability. So to enhance transparency and accountability, the private sector should engage CSOs in monitoring SDGs implementation undertaken by these private entities, as this collaboration also ensures that development projects are more accountable and beneficial to the public, but also aligning with the principle of business and human rights. I think that's all. Thank you.
And congratulations with the fourth VNR.
Yes, indeed. Gold medal.
Gold medal. Okay. So, our next speaker is Professor Takafumi Miyake Taka from Japan. He is a leader of VNR engagement team in Japan Civil Society Network on SDGs, Secretary General of Japan NGO Network for Education, and Executive Council member of Asian South Pacific Association for Basic and Adult Education. Taka is a professor at Rikyo University in Tokyo. Please.
Thank you, Jamila. Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to talk about CSO engagement with VNR in Japan on behalf of Japan Civil Society Network on SDGs. Let me start with opportunities. 90% of the people in Japan knows what SDG is, according to the public opinion poll. So we admire the efforts by the government of Japan to publicize SDG. And 70% of local government have their own SDG action plan, and increasing number of companies promote their own initiative to contribute to SDGs. However, we have many challenges. The number of members of the parliaments who are interested in SDGs are very limited. So far, no act or the laws regarding SDG have been on the table in the parliament, meaning we don't have any legal framework on SDGs. Most of the government of high-ranking officials recognize SDGs as international issues rather than domestic ones, in spite of the fact that most of the target in SDG relate to domestic ones. And business sectors are very concerned and interested in SDG, but they focus on environmental aspect of SDGs, and the little attention is paid to the poverty, equity, and inclusion. And citizens, even though most of the people know what SDG is, but when it comes to the policy changes, which requires the paying of the people are not supportive. So the intern, on the SDG 17, 0.7% of GNP for offshore development assistance is not well supported by the people in Japan. So we are afraid that in spite of the government efforts, that the VNR of this year of Japan will be just copy and paste existing policies and practices. Then we employ four strategies. Sorry, next slide, please. Then we employ four strategies. One is compiling CSO Spotlight report. Happy to tell you, exactly today afternoon, this report is launched in Tokyo to the public. And this photo shows the front page, cover page of the report, which is about 70 pages. And we make assessment of achievement of all the 17 goals with the perspective of the marginalized population. We shed the light of the, those who are with the disabilities, indigenous peoples, migrant workers and their children, and those who are poor. So we want the this spotlight report will give impact on the VNR of Japanese government. Secondly, we work closely with the SDG Roundtable, which is the institutionalized multi-stakeholder platform consisting of business sector, academia, trade union, consumers association, and civil society. Since this is a formalized, institutionalized entity, they will contribute one chapter of the VNR. So we work together with this roundtable, to incorporate our spotlight report in their chapter. Thirdly, of course, we have formal and informal conversations with the government. And lastly, the next month, government will start to receive public comment on the draft VNR in March. So we plan to mobilize people to contribute their public comment using our spotlight report for the improvement of the draft. Lastly, let me share 3 lessons learned from our experience. We are capitalizing on VNR process for civil engagement in SDGs. As I said, people have know what SDG is, but when it comes to policy changes, not so supportive. So we want to take this, want to use this VNR process for making significant changes. Secondly, we are making lobbying efforts to change perceptions of SDG from, as I said, from international one to domestic and local. And SDG is not only about environment, but also equity and inclusion aspect are critically important. And lastly, but not the least, in this process, raising awareness through education is important. And we believe that education is a cross-cutting intervention to achieve all the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you for listening.
Thank you indeed for all 4 presentations. It's very interesting, useful. I think there are a lot of learnings and opportunities. So before we, actually the time is very close, I think we will have a chance to have a couple of questions maybe from the auditorium. But before that, I would like to say thanks, special thanks to our colleague from Mongolia, Uran Soj. Orna, she's online with us. Orna, hello. And I'll just announce your message which you send it to the chat. We Mongolian Civil Society Organizations Network for Sustainable Development made the initiative to consult with multi-stakeholders, government and the private sector representatives, as well as with researchers on interlinkages of SDG 5 targets with SDG 3, 4, 8 targets. For this purpose, we have organized a workshop among the network members. That's a good achievement, and thanks a lot. So, and yeah, thanks a lot for your interventions, and thanks a lot for all efforts for organizing this side event particularly. Okay, now please questions or comments. We have opportunity for a couple speakers from the auditorium, if any, please. Yeah, please, question. Introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you. I'm Ubed from National Education Coalition in Indonesia. Thank you for the panelists. It's a good presentation to share about the experience CSO engagement in VNR process. My question is, depend on your experiences on lesson learned in VNR process and CSO engagement. we have a big challenge on the lack of data and data that show in VNR, for example, mostly official data from the government. And it's not easy for us, for example, as CSO, put our data in VNR document. So do you have some lesson learned or special experience engagement how the CSO can put the CSO's data on the grassroots data to the document of VNR that released by the government? Thank you.
Okay, maybe two more questions from the auditorium, and we have one question from online, from Bina. Bina, you can just later, after this question, you can just ask also. Yeah, after collecting 3 questions, maybe our speakers will be answering. Thank you, please.
Hello everyone, I am Jishan. I am from Bangladesh. I work with BRAC. And I have just 2 things to say. One is like nice presentation, and I agree with from our country context that there are gap regarding people's awareness regarding SDGs, and from Ansel Moli sir's presentation, we have seen the people's scorecard. So we have some experience regarding such scorecard, and we found that that was not very fruitful as long as government has some buy-in, or like government has some engagement there. Because we started a youth-led community scorecard, but when we started, government's local officers didn't help us a lot. But when we went to the their high officials, only then they gave us some access to their offices and health centers. So for these, it is good to have this kind of mechanism, but for at the beginning, we need government's support, government's specific engagement and political will to support us. So this is one thing. And last year, I saw in some of the APSD-Side Event, there is a increased discussion regarding VLR, that is voluntary local review. So I want to know if it is relevant, or how powerful or relevant it is regarding the discussion of VNR. Thank you.
Thank you, please. Bina, we have one question and one comment from, just 2 questions from online. Please, Bina, can we make, yeah?
Can you
Bina,
hear?
please.
Can you
You're
hear me?
online, yes, please.
Yes.
Answer your
So,
question shortly. Thank you.
So I would like to know more about the independent monitoring mechanisms by CSOs. Can we make joint submissions as well, or thematic submissions, like maybe for gender equality or statelessness? So these are my questions is, where can we get more information on submissions made by CSOs? And can we do joint submissions as well? How well taken are they? Because in CEDAW and CRC, CSOs are used to giving a report. So that's.
Thanks a lot. We received your questions, and your question is matching with another question from Khairini So from Tajikistan. It's also related with from community of evaluators, because the creation of system of monitoring and evaluation of SDG 5, there are any tools? And the second question is, what about interlinks between 5 and the SDG 13? So both of them are cross-cutting CSOs. Thanks a lot, colleagues, for your questions. Time is 6 p.m. I think. Maybe we can take, if possible, 10 more minutes just to answer to the questions and then wrap up the session. Thank you. Please, dear panelists, maybe just one by one, you will pick up questions or something. Who would like to start? Okay, Becky, yeah.
In terms of community-generated data, of course, there are official statistics and there are not official statistics, but there are proxies that the government actually adopts when it is not meaning not tier 1, but could be tier 2 or tier 3, no? So in terms of the classification of the statistics in the indicators and targets. There is also a lot of community-generated data, for example, surveys, no, that are being regularly taken by non-official, private sector companies that can complement real stories, that can really come out with the real stories on the ground at certain points in time. So we actually assert ourselves in terms of writing these stories in our spotlight or shadow reports, and then we try to present this to government. Of course, the government doesn't listen all the time, but at least there are policy recommendations that we put forward because that's very important. You have to come out with them. I'd like to share also one very um, uh, what's this good example that my NGO has done in terms of valuing care work. We actually started working with the National Statistics Office, which is the Philippine Statistics Authority in the region. This is local, very local. One of the subnational offices actually started helping us with valuing care work, and the local government office unit in where we are working, where we are cooperating with, actually put out an ordinance, a local law that mandates the collection of these data so that the survey is enriched. It's part of the labor force survey, so that's how we pushed the Philippine Statistical Office to open up, and they're presenting it to the board at the national level, and so we're hoping that the value of care work can now be measured. So it's fingers crossed. We actually got an award from SCAP in November in the occasion of Beijing Plus 30 for this.
Thank you. Sue, Intan, please.
Thank you for the question, Kak Ubaid. In the Indonesia context, I think for INFID itself, we already established people scorecard for 3 years, and later this year we also established people scorecard. Maybe we can, like contact each other, and then I will give you the people scorecard review. So this people scorecard is a mixed methodology. They have quantitative and qualitative data that we have to dig up along and among the CSOs in Indonesia to be the antithesa of the data of the government in the VNR. And we also have a shadow report, as Becky mentioned. Again, in Indonesian context, in FID this year, we also gather the NGO that have concern for the goals under review, such as Kapal Perempuan, KPI, and also a lot of them. And we gather them to create a shadow report and give a, like a bodily experience and also grassroots experience that they work with. Yeah. Maybe we can chat after this.
Thank you so much. Sue, please, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So just a couple of things that I would like to highlight. I think one of the good experience that I have is to get directly involved with VNR. So with the VNR process, I can actually know the story from both sides of the spectrum, whether it's from the government or it's from the CSO. So in terms of the data, yes, for the VNR, we do have to stick with the official data. That's from the very get-go before we actually sign up to do the VNR. But throughout the process of preparing it, I would need to also highlight that the relationship with the CSO and with the Malaysia government, at least, they are not rigid. So there's always a constant negotiations whether while the official data give us an overall view of Malaysia, but we are constantly also nudging them to tell them that Malaysia is very diverse. National data doesn't really reflect them effectively. Can we actually consider other data? So it is a continuously knocking on them and then negotiations. It is a relentless kind of a process, but I think that we are getting somewhere. Also respond to Bina's questions about the CSO engagement. So for this round of the VNR, I think it's also again with the relationships that we have with the government that's continuously negotiating and building the rapport. We now having a more inclusive process in terms of preparing the VNR. A lot of the time we still feel like maybe is this really like ticking a box, because the space that we are allowed to write the VNR is really quite limited. They have already limited the space, but with that limitation of the space, how is it that we can make use of that? So again, there's a negotiations, but respond to Vena's question is that in Malaysia, we will be having another consultation on the 6th of March. So the VNR process in Malaysia, maybe I can also just to give you a highlight, is that it is facilitated by the UNDP. So UNDP is the third party that is actually overlooking the whole process, facilitating the multi-stakeholders engagement and consultation between the writers and also the government agencies. So a lot of stakeholders are involved in writing that report. So that give a lot of dimensions, a lot of ideas, but a lot of considerations and negotiations at the same time. So it is not so straightforward to say that, okay, we have this people's team, whether we achieve the targets or indicators or not, but we are also looking into how is it that this indicator can be determined, whether we in terms of the progress and also the achievement or the challenges. So yeah, that is the I suppose that can be a struggle, but also there is also the interesting dynamics of writing the VNR. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Taka, please.
On the data collection for for indicator, as an inclusive process for compiling a spotlight report, SDG Japan asked 300 member organizations, most of them are network organizations, to fill in. We made a spreadsheet of 169 targets. So the member organization fill in that spreadsheet. I mean, their the data or knowledge what they have, they can contribute to this spreadsheet in the process of the compiling spotlight report. So the government Japan pretty serious to collect data. For example, target 4.1, which ensuring the universal education up to secondary level. And the government Ministry of Education has a data, about the number of out-of-school children in Japan is 340,000, which is quite a lot. 1 in 15 lower secondary students don't go to school, and they have data. But when our exercise could contribute to show how serious those children out of school face. So not only, of course, indicators, most of them, of course, it's a quantitative data is important, but also quality side of the data collection is also important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for questions. Thank you for answers. Actually, it was really interesting. And also in the chat, they share, our partners share the information that's Action for Sustainable Development, the organization which have a tool, People Scorecard, mentioned by some panelists, and also Anselmo mentioned about that one, but they're very useful to where civil society organizations can provide survey or research of all 17 SDGs. So it's interesting, useful, and can have some interesting data, which will helpful for dialogue and for collect SDGs findings. So I think that we are very close to wrap up the session, and thanks a lot to our panelists. But we have a special guest, special speaker for the closeout remarks. Please, Miss Monhusoil Patarjan, So she's a member of parliament and the chair of the SDG subcommittee, Mongolian parliament. Yeah, okay. Are you okay to come here or it's okay? Oh, there's a microphone. Okay. Mike, but Mike. Thank you, sir.
Okay, is it good afternoon or good evening? So thank you for all the panelists as well as Mrs. Inchbayer from Mongolia, who is General Secretary of National Gender Committee. So I guess this session was quite interesting and we really focused on SDG number 5, which is gender equality. And when we talk about gender equality, we mostly talk about women issues because in our countries, the problems and challenges are mostly related to women. For example, we talk a lot about women participation in politics, women economic empowerment, independence of financial resources, and as well as social influence. So it was nice to get all the different aspects from those 4 different countries. And it's for me, it's quite new that, thank you, Mr. Lee, talking about VNR. I was guessing the name is, it was abbreviation and it seems like Voluntary National Review. Is it correct? On SDGs. So, in terms of Mongolia, we are achieving quite good results in certain aspects. For example, as Ichbayer said, in terms of political participation of women, we are improving. The situation is improving. For example, I'm one of the women MPs out of 32. So total, this time we have 126 MPs and 25% of whole MPs are women. How it happened is like, for example, I'm from Hum Party. I was in Hum Party since 2015, and since 2016, I became one of the board members. We had a total 5 members only at that time, and I was the only woman. So from 2022, we have started focusing on making amendments in the constitution to have proportional element in the election law as well as to have list. So in the mixed election system, we were supposed to have 48 members out of 126 shall be elected from the list, and in the list, the gender should be zipped. For example, if it starts by male, the second one should be female, third one should be male, and fourth one should be female. That's the case. If it starts by female, which is not happened, that the male, female, male. That thanks to that combination, I mean the zipping ordering, we had now 32 women members at the parliament, which is 24 elected from the list. So you can imagine if we didn't have that zipping formula in the mixed election law, we wouldn't have in total 32 female MPs. So that is, maybe you can also take a takeaway from as a good example from Mongolia. So I can talk a lot on this. So let's move to the next thing. I am now at the parliament. There are about 60 legislation working groups, and I am in about like 9 of them. So including it's about I'm going to work on labor law as well as human rights national program stage 2 and so on. So in that regard, besides being as a chairwoman of subcommittee on SDGs, I can also bring some synergy. I'm wondering a lot about coordination. You talked a lot about challenges, why we couldn't have good results in terms of SDG and so on. one of the reasons is like we do not have good coordination between agencies, relevant agencies, and public government organizations, and as well as some civil society and policy makers and so on. So we have to bring synergy, not only in terms of funding, but as well as in terms of content. And we can have, together we can, achieve great results, I guess. So second, I also would like to mention the problem of awareness. Mr. Taka from Japan, I'm really glad that you are here because you are man. In this room, how many men we do have? Yeah. And Mr. Elaine, second of all, you are from Japan. It's good that there wouldn't be only developing countries. Also, developed strong countries here means like motivating us as well. And you have you do have many problems. It's good for us also to know. I'm joking. So every country has their own problems. Yeah, so I agree with you. You said we need to, raise public awareness, which is, I also think that in Mongolia, not many people know about SDG. Of course, when we talk about whatever like poverty, employment, or health issues, equal education, and so on, everybody knows. But people don't know those, targets and goals and objectives are under SDGs. So we really need to work a lot on how we should let people know about SDG and how they can pay more attention in order to push the government and MPs and so on. That is and not only public, as well as MPs, policymakers, maybe government agencies, ministers, they know because it's their job. But MPs, I think they have less awareness of this. So we need to work more on this as well. And I also agree with you guys when you talked about now we need to focus on action. We do have many reports. We do have somehow whatever, maybe it's not perfect, but some policies. Now we need to really implement them. Actions, we need actions. If we really implement those papers or policies or programs, we can really bring real achievements. So I agree on those two main points. And synergy I mentioned, awareness I mentioned. Yeah, so every country has their own issues and challenges. I just mentioned few of good achievements of Mongolia. We do, of course, have many challenges and problems, issues, including the gap of wages and salaries between women and men and so on. We do have similar problems. But for many years, we talked a lot about issues, problems, and challenges. Now, I'm just going to invite you all, let us focus on action and let's create good coordination and let's synergize all our efforts, including both labor, human resource, and financial resources. And not only meet once in a year. Let us communicate more in order to have good, fruitful cooperation and coordination. So we could have some whatever social group or social groups on social media or WhatsApp and so on. I think Jamila, you will be good at that. And I guess I'm the only one from MP level, parliament level, and also I'm not so sure what was the previous history, but anyhow, I'm glad to be here and I wish you all the best. And let me just finish now because we talked a lot for 1.5 hours already. So wish you best. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Actually, our session, just is closing, and more remarks from Urna, who is actually owner of the session. She had idea, great idea. She encouraged Anselma, me, all panelists to organize this. Thank you for Anselma for organizing this workshop and for your presentation. Thank you, Jamila. I mean, just for. And thank you all presenters again. I wish you continue taking into interlinkages and strengthening multi-stakeholders participation. So thanks a lot. Yeah, thank you. Group photo, can we put here or maybe in the hall? Here, okay, maybe we can need some slide, yeah.